Okay, if you've got questions during this session, you should have a little questions panel down on the bottom of your GoToMeeting toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. You can type them in there. There's some staff in the background from A2K who will endeavour to answer your questions as we go. Right, so just before we make a start on the webcast, there's a couple of little housekeeping items that might be quite good just to cover off. So let me run through there. Now I've gone and remastered some of the old webcasts that we've done over the last few years, and they've been posted both on our website and on YouTube. And the easiest way to get to those, and these ones that people found very useful, so that's why I've done it. The easiest way to go to those is just, I'm going to go into my browser here. I'm going to put in A2K. That's all you need. And search for that, and it'll take you through to A2K Technologies. And this is our website. So where all our current or the webcast done over the last 2 years are on the events button on the right, and then the webinar vault. So if you scroll down through the list there's a whole bunch of mixed ones at the top, some of which I've done on civil topics like InfraWorks. But if you scroll down to the bottom, there is a group called Engineering. That's where all the Civil 3D ones are put. And so you can see there's ones there done by Sean Toomey, by myself, and also by Morgan Smith from Brisbane. But at the top of that list is a playlist called Blast from the Past. Click on that. Well, the easiest way to get to it, rather than having to find it in YouTube, is just click on that. It brings up the playlist itself, but here it's going to go play all. You don't really probably want to play all, so what you can do is just click on that, play all, and then once it starts up, just pause it and go to the YouTube link down the bottom right. Pause, that would be good. There we go. And go through to the YouTube link. When you do that, this gives you all of them there. It still wants to start again, so I'm going to... Oh no, sorry, that's this one. So as you can see, they're recorded sessions, same as what we're doing here, but we've got some on 3ds Max, we've got other ones on grading, subassembly composer, stormwater stuff, or water stuff, some other intersection tool stuff, and some stuff on point clouds. Now these are all ones people have found useful over the last few years, especially when you're starting out with Civil 3D, which is why we've put those back up and made them publicly available. So do have a look at those. There's some good stuff in there. All right, I'm going to kill my browser. There we go. And back to the webcast. So what we want to look at is sort of an intermediate use of the intersection tool. Once you've done your first intersection, what can you then do with it? We'll be covering off a bunch of tips and tricks on the way through, and then we'll have a look at combining a whole subdivision together into one corridor, what you can do with that, where you use offset alignments and creating surfaces from it, etc. So I think probably the next thing to do is to start the demonstration and get into it. Oh, there is one more thing I'd like to do once we get in there. So let's start up Civil 3D, which I have here. Now anybody who's done a training with us will recognise this data set and probably has a copy of it already. So if you want to follow along exactly what I'm doing, you can do that as well with this data set if you've been to training with us. All right, what I would like to do first is just a little poll to see where the current, or you guys as an audience, are in relation to the intersection tool. So I've just got a little poll. You'll be able to click on screen and tell me how much exposure you've had to the intersection tool so far. So we're getting about even in terms of who has and hasn't used it already. I know have not used it. It's gone up quite a bit now, so about 56%. So let me give you a couple more seconds just to click on those, and then I'll share it with you. So let me close that, and I'll share that with you so you can see the results. So yeah, most people actually haven't looked at the tool yet, so that gives me an idea of where to base this the next hour or so on. So that's good. Thanks very much for that. Okay, so starting at the beginning, I guess, and then taking it a bit further. So about 2010 version, they introduced these intersections in the intersection tool, which is up here in the Home tab of the ribbon under this drop down here. For create intersection. Now there is below that some things about roundabouts, but those, if you hover over them, there's a little video that shows you what they're about. Making a 2D design of a roundabout, they're not making a 3D object. So to make an actual 3D corridor that you can use to make surfaces, etc. off, you need to use the first one, the create intersection tool. So that's the one we're going to have a look at today. So let's click on that. It then says select the intersection point. Now in this data set I've got a whole bunch of alignments, and I'll try not to move the screen too fast so it doesn't lag too much on your machines running over the web. But each alignment has its own design profile already. Now it does require a design profile on each alignment running in so that it can work out the levels it has to make this corridor at. If you don't have a design profile for each incoming road, you'll get halfway through the wizard we're about to go through and you'll find that part of it's grayed out. If that happens, it means you haven't got design profiles for all of the incoming roads. In this case, we've got T intersections, but it works just fine with X or cross intersections as well. These are not actually at 90 degrees. It handles angles and things quite easily. And intersections on corners, no problem as well. We're going to do one here to begin with anyway. So I'm just going to, when you start the command, on the command line, it says select the intersection point, find where two alignments intersect, and click there. Okay, so this is the wizard that comes up. It's a 3-step wizard, and you just basically look at each of the components in each step. So you can give the intersection a new name if you want to. I think this is utility 3 and utility 2 if I remember correctly, but let's just run with the defaults for the moment. And it's going to put a label there that goes on no plot layer, so that's fine. Main option in here is what do you want to do with the crossfalls of the main road. You can either run the main road all the way through, maintaining its crossfalls, so the side roads match into it, or you can go all crowns maintained, so all the roads meet at a point in the center, but whichever road you drive through, there will be a bump in the crossfalls as you drive through directly through that intersection. The more normal case is the primary road crown maintained, and if you've got T intersections such as we have here, the top of the T that runs all the way through will be the main road by default. We'll go next. Okay, so here's our main road at the top, priority 1, and the secondary road, priority 2, down below. You can change those order with the arrows at the side if you've got a cross intersection. So basically the second stage of the wizard, you just click on each of these 4 buttons and fill them out as needed. So we've got offset parameters first, which brings up this little panel. Now, if you have a look in each of these panels down the bottom, there's a little picture. And when you click on one of these lines up in the table up above, it both highlights in the background the alignment that it's referring to as the primary road, which is utility 3, so I click on that, it highlights, and the secondary road is the one heading down to the south there, utility 2. If you click on the space for the 3 meter entry here, the offset value, you can see that it is the width of one of the roads, in this case the main road, that you're going to be typing in that pane, and that is the width of the other side of the road when you click on that. So watch the picture down the bottom, that'll tell you what it's wanting. I'm going to leave that 3 meters, I guess. Oh, let's make that, let's up that one, make it 3.5. and that one 3.5. And for the secondary road, we'll leave those as 3 metres and 3 metre lane widths, and those are the lane widths up to the edge of seal. You do have the ability here to use an existing alignment, so you would use that, set that to yes and select your alignment. If you had an existing curb, for instance, you wanted to keep as a side of the intersection that you've been out and surveyed, you could run an alignment through that, tell it to widen the intersection out to that particular alignment, and then you could also match the levels of that when we go and set the crossfalls of the slopes. You can match into the levels of an existing curb, which would be a surface profile out on that alignment. So that's always useful. However, in this case we don't. We've got a bit of a greenfields here, so we don't need to do that. We will use that shortly when we combine these things together though. What I always do is tick on this create new offsets from start to end to centre lines. This is going to make offset alignments which are slaved to the centerline alignments of each road, but they define the widths of the intersection, plus I'm going to run them all the way along the alignments because we want to use those later on. I usually always tick that one on. So do that and go OK. The next step is what do we want for curb returns. So if we click on the curb return parameters, here are our curb return parameters. So again, in the background, it highlights the particular curb return we're talking about. So if I change another quadrant, it shows me which quadrant we're talking about. So in this case, let's not have a circular fillet. We can have a chamfer. Again, the picture down the bottom shows you what it is. I don't know anybody that actually uses those. So let's not have a chamfer. Let's have a 3-centered arc. And you can change the parameters in there if you want to. Those parameters are fine for now. So let's put that in there and change the other quadrant. Let's not have a 3-centered arc. So let's have a circular fillet of, say, a radius of, I don't know, 12 metres, something like that. You've also got options here if you want to widen the incoming lane for the incoming road, which makes a turning lane for going into this particular, or around this particular curb return. And you've also got widen turn lane for outgoing road, which makes a merging lane once you've gone around the corner. Let's actually do one of those. So let's just do a turning lane in there to get the traffic out of the way, the main flow in the main road there before it goes around the corner. And again, you've got sections, details down the bottom here of a linear transition, the lengths, and what size you want, what offset values, etc. You can all change in there for this turn lane. So let's just run with that for the moment and go OK. Next button is the lane slope parameters. Click on lane slope parameters, and it's just the crossfalls of each road. So let's just run with all 3% minus all 3% sloping away from the centre line. Obviously, if you have mono slope, you can make one negative, one positive, and this is where if you had an existing curb, you could tell it to use the surface profile for the existing curb out on the alignment that you've drawn, and it would match or change the crossfalls to match whatever's existing out there, which is also very useful. And we're going to use that, in fact, as well when we put two of these together, two of these intersections together. So I'm just going to leave that all as 3% at the moment and go OK. And lastly, curb return profile parameters. This is basically going to put a little 10-metre stub on the ends of the intersection, and I find that very useful. You can make them smaller, make them 1 metre or something smaller, even half a metre if you want, but I do find those useful to have, and you'll see why in a moment. Thing to note, in profile, the curb return is always drawn as a straight line profile, so you probably want, if you're in fairly steep terrain, rugged terrain, steeper than, well, a lot of New Zealand's pretty steep anyway, so I guess you want to have a look anyhow. You do need to go and have a look at the curb return profiles and perhaps draft your own one there. I will have a look at that as we go. But that's a reminder of what the software actually does. So we'll leave that as all good and go OK and go next. So the last step in the wizard is to decide what you want to do. So we're going to create a new corridor. We don't have a corridor at the moment in this drawing. The EG surface for the daylight or batter slopes to finish on, that's great. Now, the one thing you do need to do the first time you come into here is click the Browse button. When you do that, if you haven't used the intersection tool before, you will be in this folder, which are the American assembly sets for making the corridor from. These, well, it does have a left-hand side drive of the road, but more often than not, when people use these, they grab the right-hand side drive of the road, driving side of the road, and the corridor ends up turned inside out. The intersection corridor is inside out. It's got the batter slopes in the middle and the lanes on the outside. Recommend that you just simply, or actually can go up one level in the folder structure here, grab the ANZ folder, and within there we've got three options, all left-hand drive, so we can use those. Let's grab the curb and footpath. You can go curb, no footpath, or just a paved area and you put on your own curb and footpath or shoulders, whatever you want afterwards. But let's grab the whole lot. At the moment, go curb and footpath ANZ and go open. Next time you come into here, it will have remembered that choice, and in this drop down you'll be able to select it. Okay, that's a little thing we could not set when constructing the Australia-New Zealand country kit, so you do have to manually browse to the correct folder for that. When you do that, it fills in these ANZ assembly lines here. You can see you've got ANZ written there now, and that is basically all these little shapes of assemblies that it uses to make one of these intersections up with all these little components. Before we had this intersection tool, it used to take me sort of 2.5 to 3 hours to build one of these manually, and it was not nearly as user-friendly as what we're going to get now. So this saves a huge amount of time if you've had to do one manually, and you'll see the software does it in about 5 seconds. So I do believe we're ready to go, so I'm going to click on the Create Intersection button here, and this is the part that used to take me 2.5 hours, and you can see that has done it already for me. Now, sometimes on this machine, and sometimes not, it shows me the corridor straight away, and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, and it may not on your machine, just do a regen, REA for regen all on the command line, hit enter, and it will show up. So you can see there's our merging lane, sorry, our turning lane going in there. First thing I always want to do is pick the corridor, right-click Object Viewer, give it a rotate, let go of the button, the left button, and see that it has formed up correctly, and that's looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's all at the correct levels, and it's running well. Okay, that's one intersection. Now there's two schools of thought, really. Let me just do a save at that point, just in case. So I'll do a save as, throw it on the desktop. Okay. There was two schools of thought when these intersections first came out. One was to make your corridors first, leave a space in the middle, and then make your intersections afterwards, and just fill in those spaces between the corridors you'd already made. Second school of thought, and the one that makes more sense to me, is to make your intersections first, as I've just done here. Then, once you've got them created, you can fill in the gaps in between, or the bits of road that you want to extend them along, by picking the corridor, going copy region up in the ribbon, picking the end region. Now here's something. Have you noticed 2015 AutoCAD, when you pick objects, often wants to highlight them in blue like that? On the command line it's saying select a region to copy, and here's my first tip and trick if you like. Used to be, well, when you move your cursor over a region, it's actually highlighting in blue, but it's already highlighted in blue, so you can't actually see the additional highlighting. Now there is I'll just hit escape here, get out of that. There, you can turn that off. There is a command called selection effect. So if you type in selection E on the command line, you should get selection effect. It will be on 1 if you haven't changed already. You put it on 0 and it goes back to the old selection style. So when I pick that corridor, it now goes, those dashed lines doesn't turn blue. which means that when I go copy region, it highlights the regions again for me to pick from in blue, which is nice. So I now want to pick this one. One of the reasons why I left the 10-meter stub on was that I can pick it and copy it. So I'm going to pick it, and it gives me a little runner. Now, because I told it to make these cyan lines on either side of the main centerline are the offset alignments. Because I told them to run from the start to the end of each alignment, they go all the way down the road. So I can say I want my new region to start here, run all the way back down the road and around the corner and to about, I'll go there somewhere I suppose. And now you can see I'm actually using the corridor that has been made for the intersections, but just duplicating it down the road where I need to, so I don't actually have to manufacture the road down the hill. It's being made for me with the assemblies of the intersections. So we should have a look at those assemblies and intersections. What it actually did when we built that intersection was bring in, and it'll be somewhere up near the top right-hand corner of your model space, these assemblies. Now what I normally do is move the text a little bit just to line up so I can read it a bit more easily. These are all the components used to make up that corridor for the intersection and now for that section along the road. You can change these, so put your own batter slopes on them, put your own footpaths or curves, whatever you like. There's a nice little tool actually these days. If you pick any subassembly, you can right-click and go select similar subassemblies, and it grabs all the ones in your drawing of the same type, and then you can go Control 1 or right-click Properties and change all their properties all at once, which is very useful. Similarly with, well, you do want to make sure it grabs them all as well. Sometimes these daylight lines can be slightly different all through here. But obviously if you're changing one, you probably want to, well, almost always will need to change all of them at the same time to make sure your intersection is correct all the way around the intersection. So that's where those assemblies come into it. And those are those A and Z ones we picked on the way through the wizard. All right, so let's look at now making another intersection over here, another part of our subdivision. So we start the wizard again. Intersections, create intersection, and make sure you do get the center line. Don't pick the offset alignments over here. Grab the two center lines that intersect. And we're looking at making a new one. So in this case, let's use the other option just for the heck of it. All crowns maintained. Go next. That's all fine. The offset parameters for this one. Now, here's the slightly new bit. We've got a primary road, this one running all the way through here. We don't have any offset alignments on either side of that, so we want to create some more. So I'm going to tick on create new offsets from start to end to center lines again. So for that, let's make that also 3.5. Oops. 3.5 and 3.5 wide. But for the secondary road, which is now this road here, we do have our offset alignments and our offset crossfall levels based on those alignments to use. If we just left this as it is, it would create new offset alignments on either, running all the way along that alignment, and you'd end up with two objects over the top of each other. And it could get quite messy if you've got lots of intersections in the drawing. So what we want to do is tell this to use the existing ones for the secondary road, which is the one highlighted in the background there, which is our utility 3. So where we see it says use an existing alignment, we're going to go yes. So we don't have a existing curb line surveyed out there, but we do have these running off the other intersections. So the alignment name we want is, now you do need to be careful which is the left and the right. This is the left offset alignment. This alignment runs, the chainage runs from left to right, so the left hand side is going to be to the north. You can pick this green button up the top here to pick on screen and pick that offset alignment to the north, and you can see they have been well labelled. It's utility 3, which is the centerline name. It's the left and 3.5 metres out. So that's the one we want. We go OK. And for the right, we're going to go use consistent alignment, yes. The alignment name is going to be, and again, because it's well labelled, I know what it is, it's the utility 3 on the right, and go OK. Do make sure you get your lefts and rights around the right way, and that they are the correct ones for that centre line, or the intersection just won't work. Alright, and again, tick on that button, create new offsets where it needs to, and we go OK. Curve return parameters, I'm actually just going to run with the defaults there for the moment. I don't need to change those. Nothing new there. The lane slope parameters though, we need to do the same as what we did with the offsets. For the primary road, we'll make our new ones, 3% crossfalls. For the secondary road, which is our utility 3, we want to use the pre-made profiles that go with those offset alignments. So we go using existing profile, yes. The profile name, again, has been well named, so it's utility 3 on the left, make sure left matches with left, and a minus 3% crossfall. Using existing profile for the right, yes, and it's going to be utility 3 right, minus 3% crossfall. Alright, so now we are using the same parameters as what, same objects to target as what the other intersection is. So we're putting it all together. The curve return profile parameters, we will leave those 10 metre stubs all as they are. We go OK. Go next. Now, here's the difference. We don't want to create a new corridor for this one. I'd like to add them all to be the same corridor. Add to the existing corridor, which is called corridor 1. We haven't renamed it yet, but it's just the corridor we made with the other intersection. So add to existing. That's an easy one to miss. Again, there's our daylight surface, and we're going to use the same assembly sets, which is all good. Now we click on Create Intersection. Okay, and so now when you pick one of these intersections, you can see the other one highlights as being the same corridor. If we right-click on it, go Object Viewer, it's one object altogether. Alright, that's almost what we want. One last piece, we want to fill in this gap between the two intersections. So just the same as we did to the south, we can, well actually just before we do that, let's have a look at this offset alignment. When you pick one of these, it gets a little triangular grip for change offset in the middle. If you click on that and change its width, so I think we had 3.5, let's widen it out to 4, shall we say. So if I, where did my, turn that off. Oh, looks like my dynamic input's turned off. Okay, let me just turn that back on again. There it is. And the dynamic input is that button there. Okay, so when you've got the dynamic input turned on, you can type in the number you want. So it's on the left, so it's minus 4. So it'll widen out to there. And, has it done it? Oh, it did. Okay. Right, so we've gone half a metre further out. You can see that's my edge is sealed there, and it's moved out to that point. We could do something drastic here, so we can move it right out so we can really see it happening. Okay. When I'm working with intersections and corridors, and the corridors running off intersections, I don't normally put them on Rebuild Automatic. I just tend to have the intersections group and the corridors group expanded out at the same time so I can see when they go out of date. You can see it takes a few seconds to update. So if I right-click on one of those, Update Regions and Rebuild Corridor, continue with Update, you'll see that both intersections will now move out as I moved that offset alignment out. So they're slaved to it. So that's why I can stretch it down the road and have, well, the corridor down the road and have it follow those offset alignments. Okay. There's another thing you can do with these offset alignments, which is hit this little plus, add widening next to it. And it stretches out a big widening. Well, we don't want it quite that big. So I'm going to pull that in a bit. When you do that, you get a little grey grip there. You can click the grey grip and get two more cyan grips, and you can say, okay, well, I'm going to make a widening that looks like that, runs around corners and things fine, and you can use these diamonds in the middle of the road to shuffle it up and down the road as needed. You can also have a look at the properties of that. And at the moment it's linear, even though it's going around a corner, it's a linear change. We can have a look by picking that offset alignment, going into the offset parameters now up in the ribbon. We've got the ability to say, okay, well maybe we don't want it linear, maybe we want line, curve, line, and it makes that a much more curved transition between the two widths, and then you can actually control that transition with the transition length here, the curve 1 radius and the curve 2 radius, and play with that to get something nice and smooth. But the advantage of doing that is that you can now do the same as what we did before, is pick the corridor. By itself would be a good thing. There we go. Copy region, copy that region from here and down the road, and because it's already slaved to that offset alignment, it's going to widen out and follow that whatever we do with it, which is quite useful. More to the point, we can also go copy region and pick one of these and fill in the gap between two intersections. So you can see we're building up that quite quickly and easily. Alright, a couple of things we want to do probably. We want to look at what's happening to the centerline of the secondary road as it comes up and matches into the existing road. Now the existing road levels won't have been changed, but the side road has been told to match into the crossfall that's finding on the side of that road, or within a few degrees of that crossfall. That means that if you move the main road up and down now, the side road will move up and down with it, but you need to have a look at what it's doing to the profile of that. So we probably need to have a look at the profile of that side road. So let's go and have a look at that. Is this one of them? Utility 2, I believe it is. Let's have a look. Yes, it is. Cool. Okay, so this is the profile of that road running to the south. You can see, if we have a scroll into the right-hand end of it, when you see this, I'm just going to update these things as well. You can right-click, update regions and rebuild corridor. That's because we've been playing around with alignments associated with those corridors. Continue with update. There we go. Okay. It's going to go out of date when we play with this as well, but never mind. So here, these two little padlocks on the right are the centerline and the edge of the main road that it's matched into. Beyond that point, we can start playing around with these and matching the lines in. So we do have a bit of a breakover angle there, though it's within the allowable. I think it's allowed about 6 degrees or so between those. But what we can do, if we want, is just start editing this. Pull it up a bit, smooth it out. Of course, we can do it numerically as well. If we want it to match, we might need to reduce the size of some of those curves first, though. So we can bring up the geometry editor for that. Have a look at what crossfall we've got there to match into. 3.11, and I've got 4.47 there, so I'll make that 3.11 as well. Minus 3.11. Oops, what's that done? Don't think that's quite done what I wanted. No, it wasn't. Let's try that again. Oh, it's not minus at all. It should be positive 3.11. There we go. So now we've exactly matched that crossfall. We don't need, well, in fact, don't actually need that IP at all. So we can get rid of that IP Again with the geometry editor, remove that one and put in a nice curve. More free vertical curves, free vertical parabola PVI based. In there it's going to be that long, looks nice, and we're nice and smooth and joining into that again. So it will move that when it's forced to join the main road with those two padlocks. It will move it up or down to make it function. So whatever you've drafted in, you need to go and have a look if it's affected it greatly. Then to use that, we update regions and rebuild corridor on the right-click menu on the intersections again. Continue with update, and you should see a subtle change there oh yep, there it goes. Pretty subtle, but it was there in the actual corridor itself. Alright, so the reason for making these all as one surface, or one corridor, would be to make a surface out of it. If we had these all as separate corridors, we'd have to make a surface out of each one, combine them all together into some sort of combined surface, then combine them into the total model, or finished model for our project. Being one corridor, we can just pick it and in the normal way, go up to corridor surfaces and create a surface for the whole thing. So we make a new surface called corridor top. So it makes sense. Hopefully name your corridors a bit better than that. A surface style of AS contours 0.5 of a meter, I guess, will be okay. And add in all the top links, as you normally would for a top surface of a corridor. On the Boundaries tab, we're going to right-click and go Corridor Extensors Out of Boundary. Go OK, rebuild the corridor if it needs it, and have a look at the surface that's been created. Okay, so as you can see, the whole thing comes as one surface. It's looking pretty good. This one up here is not bad. That intersection, curve returns forming up nicely, but this is something you might find on some intersections. There we go. These ones here, just at the edge of a curve return, you can sometimes get the curve doing some interesting triangulation. It's not happening on the other end this time, but often it will be on actually both edges of the curve return. There is a little tip I can give you here for cleaning those up quite easily. So if we go back to our corridor and up in the ribbon corridor surfaces, here's our corridor top surface made with the top links. You want to make the links first, make the surface out of the links first, that's great. But then what you want to do is highlight that again, that particular surface, change the data type to feature lines and add in 3 feature lines from the curb. The ones to use are flange, flowline gutter, and top curb. Now that flange, flowline gutter, and top curb will act essentially because we've built the surface out of top links first. Anything we put in afterwards becomes effectively break lines if they're feature lines. So these are going to be dynamic feature lines that will move the corridor, but they will force the fold of the curve. So we'll go OK, rebuild the corridor if it asks to, and then have another look at that surface just to see that it has actually worked like I expected it to. Have a look in the object viewer. And there we go. Okay, so they've become dynamic break lines now for the corridor surface. That will work with any corridor surface, doesn't have to be an intersection. So that's a useful thing to be able to use and to know about. The other one, of course, is still the same. It's added in the break lines but didn't actually need them, so they just get added and don't have an effect on the triangulation. Okay. Things to look at. Yes, we were talking about in in steep terrain, you probably want to have a look at the curb return profiles. This is because when you run the intersection builder, it will, by default, put a straight line in the profile from the beginning of your curb return around to the end of your curb return. And you probably, in steep terrain, want to put some sort of vertical curve through there. So you can pick your alignment that runs around the curb return, which is this little sort of yellowy, greeny line, if you're looking in the ANZ Country Kit template. But when you pick it, you get cyan grips on it, and up in the ribbon it tells you it is an alignment properties there. We'll go to the launch pad off to the side, off to the end here. My screen's squished up to run through here, but it's going to be, oh sorry, no, there's the launch pad, and make a surface profile long section out of it. So I'll click on surface profile. There is the profile, design profile that the software has added in for us. We want to click on add in the EG surface as well, just for reference. Don't have to, but it's quite good to have. And then go draw in profile view, or draw in long section. I'm just going to use all the defaults in the long sections here. We're not going to be plotting this out, I'm only using it for design, so I'm just going to go create profile view, and I'll put it off to the side here. Okay, so here is our incoming road, which will be this one running along here with the big turning bay. Going around the corner is the straight line between those two diamonds, and that is the outgoing road to the south, the profile thereof. You can only make changes in the section, middle section here, which is the actual area of the curb return between those two diamonds. If you've, now the intersection itself, you can play around with the intersection by picking the intersection marker right in the middle, and you can go and change any of those things, like edit the curb return radii and things like that, change some offsets, etc. That can all be done from within there. If you're ever doing a lot of that, sometimes you may find that these diamonds end up somewhere out here somewhere, and you get this sort of doubling over of the profile, which clearly is not good, and you end up with a bit of a step in the model where that happens. If you ever see that, it's no problem. You just grab the diamond grip, you pull it right to the middle as far as it will rubber, until it starts rubber banding, and click there, and that'll fix it right up, and then you can keep going. Now in this case, we just need a single IP point to make a curve around the top here and smooth that straight line out. In this case, remember, it's 5 times exaggeration, so this is going to be fairly smooth anyway. It's not too bad. But we've got very steep roads that may make a difference. So what we want to do is pick the profile as I've just done to get the grips, click on Geometry Editor, and we're going to put in a new PVI, point to vertical intersection, and I'm just going to eyeball that to be around about through here, through there. It's going to be around about there. If you had required a reverse curve with, for instance, this road is coming down at that angle, you'd put one IP point down here, one here, and put 2 curves in, whereas I'm going to put in one in a moment. Okay, and that being put in, you can hit escape. Now, you can use these grips just to match it a little bit more closely. I think that should come that way. That's not bad. And by Mark 1 eyeball is usually pretty good. You can do it numerically if you want, again through that profile grid view up in the toolbar. That's all our incoming. The only ones you can change are these ones that are not grayed out. So you can see I'm within sort of half a degree just by Mark 1 eyeball or less. That's yeah, 0.4 of a degree. So it's not bad, but you can, of course, come in here and make that exactly minus 3.15, etc. if you want to match it exactly. Not going to get too carried away there. So we now want a curve in here. So from curves, drop down, more free vertical curves, free vertical parabola, PVI based. Click the PVI, digitize on screen just by clicking once, drag it out till it looks about right, and there is our curve that the intersection will now use. Okay, so it won't straight line anymore because we drafted our own one in there. So you would do that for the other curb turns, and then go update regions and rebuild corridor. Oh, by the way, this recreate corridor regions, that's when your corridor or your intersection goes completely wrong and you want to start from scratch again. If you do click on that one, it will undo any manual changes you've done, like these curb turns. You need to do them again, but you'd only use that as a last resort. What you do want to do for 99.9% of the time is use this one, update regions and rebuild corridor, which will leave your manual changes in place. As you can see, it hasn't changed it, but the model will now be using that as its curb return profile around that corner. So if you've got sag curves in there, obviously you can specify where you want the low points to be for the sumps, etc. And you can see, oh, that looks so much better already. So much better than the other one. No, honestly, this is quite flat, so you're not probably going to see those sorts of changes anyway. Okay, so that's good. That's how you combine them together. Now, there is one more thing I really wanted to have a look at before we finish this webcast. We've got about 15 minutes left, which was what happens, let's just close that and save that, what happens when we have multiple roads, etc., which are enclosing an area in the middle. There is a little gotcha that happens when you do that. It's always been there since day one, or year one, year dot Civil 3D. So let me show you what happens when that happens. So I'll just close that drawing for them. Well, I'll just start a new drawing, I think. Open a new drawing. I've got one here that I did before. This one here. Okay. So obviously I've closed that around to make an enclosed area, and you will get this with any enclosed area in a little subdivision you're making. The reason why we need to do something special is that when you put a boundary around that corridor, it doesn't go around the interior of that space. So the actual surface that's built, if I go and pick the surface, the corridor top surface, have a look in the object viewer. This is what it's done. So it has basically flat line from one side of that to the other, and it basically flattened out any EG surface that was in the middle there. Now, it may be an EG surface in the middle there, or it may be a design surface you've already got with your lot levels and things already worked out, or somebody else may have worked out for you, that you don't want to overwrite. So let me show you how that you get that to not overwrite, or to get around this doing that. As I say, this Civil 3D has always done that. It's just something you need to know about. So the process is this. Let me get rid of that final design surface. Yeah, I'll just delete it. And let's get rid of the infills, because that's what we're going to build. So what we want to do is produce a polyline that runs around the inside here. I've already done that here with this particular one, so I'm just going to turn off that particular layer for the moment and show you how I got it. Alright, so we want a polyline that runs around the daylight or batter slope edges of the inside of the corridor. So when you pick a corridor up in the launch pad, here's my corridor. My launch pad go. There we go. Okay, sorry, it was hidden behind my GoToMeeting. In the launch pad here, from this drop down, we have the option to just rearrange my screen. There we go. Polyline from corridor. That's what I'm looking for. we can create a polyline from any of the feature lines of the corridor. So I'm going to click on that one. It says select the corridor feature line. So I'm going to come to this point here and click on the daylight line. And I don't want it just in the fill areas. I want it as far as it goes. So click on daylight and go OK. And that will put a white line over the top or whatever. It's not gone on layer 0, whatever the current layer is. It'll be that color. And then I come to where that stops and I click on the next bit and say I want the daylight line there and the daylight for the next region here and so on and so forth. There's another region here and down around it goes. So those are all individual little 3D polylines that it's produced. And then you want to join those together. Now there's a nice function for joining 3D polylines. It's actually, if you haven't found it already, under the Modify tab. It's this one here for joining, made for originally for feature lines, but it can be worked with those other options as well: survey figures, polylines, parcel lines, or 3D polylines. So it makes joining of 3D polylines far easier and snapping together as it needs to. So make yourself those polylines all the way around and join them together into one polyline, which is what I've actually put on that other layer. What you might find is that you might get it complaining when you try and add it as a boundary to a surface, which we're going to do in just a moment, that it is it's looped or has a loop upon itself. If it has two vertices over the top of each other, that's basically what it's meaning. I did find in this one there was two vertices over the top of each other. Vertex 1 and the last vertex were snapped over the top of each other. So I converted it to a 2D polyline, just removed that one vertex and then it worked. So there's also, in this Modify tab, you can convert 2D to 3D polylines, or in this case 3D to 2D polylines, which is useful as well. That's just what I had to do in this case. But in the end, you produce a final polyline that will look something like this red one that we've got there. It goes all the way around and doesn't have any vertexes over the top of each other. So what we want to do, and the way we're going to make this work, is well, let's do a final design surface first and show you what it looks like before we make one of these and do it and complete it. So if we go create new surface, we'll call it final design. And description, you put whichever surfaces have to be combined. So it's EG plus corridor. For the style for this one, let's go triangulation cyan, so we can see it happen. Okay, so into final design, we're going to find the edits. We're going to paste in the EG surface. There it is, and then we're going to paste in the corridor top surface. Okay, and you can see by the triangulation there, we've not got the EG surface in the middle there, in the middle of that space, which is what you'd expect from what we got out of the corridor. Have a look at the object viewer. It's just flattened out that area. We should have this terrain of this little creek underneath here still. So the way to put that back in is to make yourself another surface. So go surfaces, create surface. We'll call it road infill. And let's put on a slightly different style. Let's put it onto triangles magenta. And into this road infill layer, surface, we're going to first of all find the edits, right click on edits, go paste surface and paste in EG. So it duplicates EG. Now, you might have guessed this one, we're going to create a boundary. It's going to be an outer boundary, we'll call it area 1. It's going to be outer, it's going to be non-destructive. don't have curves, so the mid-ordinate distance isn't going to be used, but we can then find that polyline and pick it, and you can see now we've got that duplicated in there. So we're pretty much ready to go there. So we've got that EG surface in the middle replicated. You can see because it's a 3D polyline, in fact, no, it's actually got the picked up the levels of that 3D polyline as well around the edge. So we then put that road infill surface into our final design surface. Remember, just expand out only the surface you want to work with when you're doing it here. It's real easy to put the wrong information to the wrong surface. So we're going to paste in now, and we go down, put in the road infill as well. So now, if we have a look at our final design surface, we've got our little creek running down through there and our EG levels. Or if it's design levels in there already that you don't want written over, you're going to get those back as well. Okay, you can continue adding other enclosed areas to that infill surface. You just make them as show boundaries, a show boundary, another show boundary within the areas that you want, and you'll get the triangulation coming back. All right, that's essentially the end of where we wanted to get up to for this little session. As I say, we will be putting the recorded session up on our website. That'll be in the webinar vault that I was showing you before, because this is one of the more recent webcasts that we've done. So hopefully that's given you something to work with. And I'll wish you a good weekend. Thank you for listening into the webcast, and we'll have a few more of these coming up. So we're getting back into the webcast side of things again now, so keep an eye out for those, and we'll see you there. Thanks very much.